Everybody, welcome. It's Wednesday. That means it's time for the NautZone. It's time to talk some NFL football here on the show. Of course, brought to you by Sportsnaut.com. If you haven't visited Sportsnaut.com, go get it. Go now. See, we got everything covered for you there up on the website, no matter what sport you're into. But obviously, we're here to talk about the NFL. Do us a favor. If you don't already subscribe to the show or to the Sportsnaut YouTube channel, do that. Hit that notifications bell for us. Also, give us a thumbs up. We would certainly appreciate it. We got rules around here. And one of those rules is this show is hosted by myself and my good friend Ryan Dyrud from the LA Football Network, who joins us now from Los Angeles. Rules, man. I don't know about you, but like growing up, I was a good kid, but I also was not a big rule guy.
Yeah. Who is, right? Who likes to follow rules? But yeah, got some fun ones to talk about today. Some new rules or rule changes.
Yes.
But good seeing you as always.
Yes, same here, my friend. I appreciate it. And you know, the owners meeting, the NFL owners meeting down in Orlando. So when all the billionaires get together and they discuss what they're going to do with their sport, of course, we knew some of the things going in there, and we'll talk about those, including the hip drop, right? The hip drop, we're going to talk about that one because that's the most controversial thing. The new kickoff rules. So if you haven't seen anything about the new kickoff rules, I think we'll start with that, Ryan, because I think it's out there. And I'm gonna show some imagery. So I'm gonna put this over Ryan, and I'm gonna cover our faces here a little bit. But this is in essence to explain it to you. The new kickoff rule is you still kick from the 35 on the left of your screen there, but your team, the kicking team, are the players that would be marked by the yellow X's there, right? So they're there, and then the receiving team would be in the setup zone. The red there, as you can see. And in the landing zone, you can have two receivers. Now, you look at this and you say, okay, what is that all about? But the point that the NFL made, Ryan, was that this was a way to bring kicking back to the forefront, that kicking would actually matter. And you might have more, because I think the league did the right thing with kick returns in the past. People were getting hurt. You got guys running 70 yards, full speed, and then bam, right? So they kind of took that away from them by moving the kicks back and all that. But then you missed the kick returners, right? Go back to Devin Hester, who's going to the Hall of Fame this year, of course, as one of the best ever. Those guys were gone. So we'll get into particulars here, though. But did you feel like kickoffs in the NFL? I always felt, okay, just get rid of the kickers and don't kick off anymore, or do something to it. They decided to do something with it, and they took a page out of the XFL handbook.
I was going to say, I'm surprised it took 4 years. The XFL debuted this in 2020 when their new league launched, and I loved it. I mean, I thought it was genius because you actually bring kicking back into the game. So I agree with you. Either get rid of it altogether, or they need to do a major change because it was basically like the old extra point. It was just a gimme that didn't matter at all in games. And so, I really like this. Actually, we'll dive into it more, but I'm glad they made a move. And yeah, you seem maybe you don't like it as much. So let's hear it.
No, I do. And I want to show a video. I'm showing the video now. You can watch. This is an old XFL game. So this is exactly what you're going to do. Now, they only have one receiver back there. You're going to have two. But you can see how it's instantly the two front lines there. And I just have this on repeat so we can watch it and talk over it. But if you see it, you can literally, you got a 5-yard running start at the defenders on the other side. So from a blocking perspective, it's interesting because, yes, you only have to the 30. So the receiver gets the ball in this video at the 5, and he runs out to, I don't know, what does he get down to, the 31, 2, something like that. But your blockers are there. So there's no big, long running wedge. There's no, massive collisions happening. It's almost like a play from scrimmage. I mean, it's a little different, obviously, but you get my point. The idea here is that you could maybe free this up. If a guy gets through that first line, for example, he could be gone, right? So I think there's going to be more scoring on kickoffs because of this. And I don't understand, honestly, Ryan, I don't understand people that are against it and making fun of it, saying it's flag football. Didn't everybody win the XFL in 2020? Weren't they saying, why doesn't the NFL do that? Why doesn't the NFL do that? So now the NFL does it, and now they're making fun of them for taking a page away from a league that eventually merged and is partly owned by the NFL.
Yeah, I don't understand why anyone would be against it, to be honest. I really don't, because you're creating strategy again in this. I mean, there was no strategy. It's just your kicker, go kick it out of the end zone. I mean, and if every now and then they would do a high pop fly to like the 1 or 2 yard line and we'd see a return, rarely ever returned. But yeah, I mean, it's basically, you said it, I think, best. It's obviously a little bit further, but it's basically the same as like a safety running down to get the running back at the line of
Right.
scrimmage. So, there's actually going to be some strategy, like blocking formations are going to matter more in terms of how you can free things up, how you can clear holes. Coverage is going to be important. Like you all stay in your line. If you read the blocking coverage wrong, then you leave yourself exposed on one side. I think it's great. I don't know why anyone would be against it. It's safer, obviously. That's the important thing too. I remember, Scott, back when I played football
Mm-hmm.
in high school, and the onside kick, this is a little different, obviously. But the onside kick was the most terrifying thing ever because it was still the NFL has since changed the onside kick, obviously, recently, and then now they've changed the full kickoff. But I remember in my high school, I can't remember if there was a set yardage rule, but it felt like there wasn't because basically the the guys kicking could get a 30-yard head start before the kick was even kicked. So they
Yes.
were running full speed 30 yards. Then the onside kick happened, which is only a 10-yard kick, and you would just get obliterated. So
Yes.
little off topic, but I just remember that whenever I think of kicks, I was on the onside kicker team, and I remember that, and it was not fun.
Yeah, and you look at it, and I know some people, oh, no, there are no more onside kicks. I go, yeah, last year onside kicks were 1 of 31 in being successful. Now, going back to the early days when onside kicks happened a lot more, I think it was just a different game, different. You could do different things. It was a different athlete. I think people today are so athletic compared to the great football players of the past. So yeah, and I like it. I wish the NFL would actually move faster on some of these things. So the kickoff thing, like I said, you take away a little bit of the onside kick situation. Obviously, you take it away because what are you going to do? You can't do a surprise onside kick. There's going to be some version of it. I think a couple analysts I heard said. I just don't see how it would work. You're just going to sky high the ball because it's open right now. When the ball goes past that certain zone, it's a free ball. So that's the other thing with this rule is so you're gonna have to like put it up in the air and just hope that it falls somewhere and that it falls somebody over and gets it. But it's not going to be like the old school onside kick where the kicker does something weird and bounces it off the ground. It's going to be a whole different thing. But that's good. I mean, listen, the NFL.
Well, just to,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
I don't want
Yeah.
to. I don't
No,
want to.
please.
I was just reading about it. So
Yeah.
the onside kick actually will look the same, but you have to declare you're doing an onside kick. So yeah, to your point, there will be no more surprise onside
No
kicks like
surprise.
Sean
Thank
Payton in
you.
the Super Bowl surprising the Colts. You have to say
Yeah.
we're going for the onside kick, and then it'll be the same formation that was last year.
Okay, so there it goes. But yeah, but the way they're lined up though, so you're going to say you're doing an onside kick. Yeah, there's no surprise to it. So it's weird. So you have to do that. But again, I think the NFL, as good as it's been doing, I mean, you look at the ratings and all that stuff. It's crazy how much money they're making and how many of us watch it. But I also
Talk
think,
about it.
yes, and we talk about it here. But I also think that like you see with baseball, I'm wearing my baseball hat because obviously tomorrow's opening day. But you want the sport to progress too, and in this case, you have a double thing. You have it's going to win because I think it'll produce more scoring on kicks and more excitement. And number two, it actually makes the players safer. Now, those types of rules about player safety, there's starting to be a lot of pushback from people I respect, even in the media, who are saying like, "Wow, come on, man, this isn't powder puff football. I mean, it's football. You got to go out there. You got." And the answer is yes, until it was your son or your father or somebody like that. Now, they're going to have risk, Ryan. You can't get rid of risk. Football will always be a violent sport, even if we're trying to make it safer. But I think the safety issue, sometimes they use it, and I think people have come numb to it, and which is why they're kind of dismissing it here with this kickoff thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I always not calling anyone out, but I see it all the time. Like especially with former players, right? They talk
Mhm.
about what they had to go through with their bodies, not getting NFL, not taking care of them long enough with
Yeah.
healthcare, and that's a whole nother conversation. But then in the same breath, they'll say, "Wow, the league is so soft now. Like you can't even do anything. Like blah blah blah." It's like, okay, which do you want? Do you want full player safety protectives where you're not going to get injured all the time, or do you want it to be smash mouth football, but you're risking not being able to walk at the age of 40? So
Yeah.
you can't have it both ways. The league has obviously swung now much more to the player safety side. I think rightfully so.
Mhm.
We still get some great hits and collisions. There's a lot of unfortunate penalties because of those that happen, but it kind of you can't have it both ways, unfortunately, and this is kind of where we're at.
No, it's where we're at, and again, bringing new angles to the game. I still think going back to the XFL, the NFL still should do the sky judge thing with the reviews. Now, I know they've also now changed the rules. Another one we can talk about which is what can be reviewed, right? And so you look at that and you say, okay, so now you're starting to get to, I think, some of the complaints that people had watching the game as fans. And if you look at that, it's one of those situations where you just want them to get it right. Okay. And sometimes, people sit there and they're like, what do you mean you can't review that play? You should be able to review that play. Well, they have it now. They can use replay. There's a third replay challenge, number one. So coaches get an extra challenge, which is fine, which is good. I think that's about accountability. That's about referees. If you need to do it, you can do it. And then replay can also be used to overturn a ruling that a quarterback was down or out of bounds before throwing a pass. Okay. So that's another one too there. So that was an interesting one. And they moved the trade deadline, by the way, to the Tuesday after week 9.
Yeah, I like that one.
Which is a good one too. And then they also have had bona fide quarterback as an unlimited number of times from his practice squad. They could bring him back up. So basically you can have a practice squad as that third emergency quarterback.
Which is kind of like what we talked about
yes.
4 months ago or whatever.
And that's what you came up with that idea. I'm like, because we had all those quarterback injuries, and you came up with a solution, and clearly they listened to you. And
Rich McKay watches the NautZone, I guess.
Maybe they should be paying you. So we'll see. But yeah, so that's that one. And then we get to the kickoff thing again. I don't know if you guys don't like it. Explain to me in the comments below, whether you're watching us on YouTube, on X or Facebook, wherever it is. Leave a comment. Tell us what you think and why you don't like it or why you do like it. Mm-hmm. But I happen to like it a lot. Now, the hip drop. We talk about hip drop. This is something we started to hear about last year. We kind of knew it was coming, but the teams and owners rallied around this. And I just don't understand it, because there's been some former players who said, when you go to tackle somebody, your body weight's going to fall down anyway. You're falling as you do this. So how can you prevent yourself from, if you go to get a receiver, a tight end, whoever, running back, and you go from behind them, grab them around the midsection or the belly area and go to tackle them and lose your footing, you're going to slip down. And is that not a hip? I mean, I just don't see, Ryan. I understand the point behind it and that it was good intent, but how the hell are you going to call this and police it the right way?
Yeah, this feels a lot like when they changed or made the hitting the quarterback a lot stricter.
Yeah.
And that very first season, it was like a nightmare, right? Like every breath on the quarterback was a penalty. And then they realized it was like, okay, this is not going to work. And they like really scaled it back. And now, outside of the egregious ones, I think it's a lot better. Like, you can tell, like, yeah, that's roughing the passer. That's not. Every now and then, obviously, there's a call that people don't agree with, but it's better than it was that first year. Scott, you remember that first year? Like, literally everything was roughing the passer.
Everything.
This feels like that, where this first year is going to be a nightmare. Any tight end. I mean, if I'm an offense, I'm calling tight end dig routes over the middle 90% of my playbook, because every tackle on a tight end is going to be, that's the only way to get him down, a big tight end. And so you're going to get the extra penalty yards almost every time. And then I feel like after this year, they'll figure out a way, or try to figure out a way to, I don't even know how you would do it, but make it less callable, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's very interesting, because I don't get how you police it correctly without either over policing or under policing. There doesn't seem like there can be a middle ground, because it's not even a dirty tackle. Like, it's one thing if it's a dirty tackle. It's literally, obviously it's unfortunate when guys get injured that way, but it's tackling. This is one of the rules where it's like, okay, I can agree with the people like, oh, well, now you're looking at flag football, just because I don't understand how you do this tackle. Hits the head, I get rid of that. That's bad. Diving at someone's ankles, like, I can see that being bad too, or knees. But it's unfortunate how it can happen sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't know how the other way guys are going to get tackled.
That's what I just don't understand, because I don't know, like, I would love to see, so the NFL decides this. I would love to see a video on how they're going to propose that players avoid this type of tackle. Now, the data they have says 20 to 25% more injuries occur on these tackles than any other kind of tackle. I guess I got to believe them, because they say it's their data. I don't, it's not like it's been vetted or anything like that. But if that's the case, okay, but then how do you teach it? Like, how do you teach high school kids going into college and college kids going to the pro not to tackle that way? I don't understand how they're going to get to that. So to your point about calling it during the season, yes, we're going to get, beginning of the season is going to be nasty. It's going to be nasty
Yeah.
because you're going to see it on big plays where a guy wraps up somebody, and guess what? Instead of being down at the 1 yard line or at the 5 yard line, he's now at the 1 yard line. Team beats him, wins the game, right? So I think that it's just opening Pandora's box with it. But the NFL again, and you know this, Ryan, they've tried rules changes and then reversed themselves the year after. So at the very least, if it's just impossible to enforce, or it's getting called so much that it's just interfering with the quality of the game and the experience for fans and players, then I could see it going away very quickly at the end of the next season.
Yeah. Yeah. And, even with everything I just said and being against it, and when you think about, I'm not saying you particularly, but when you step back and think about it, how many times a game do we have a hip drop tackle? Now, obviously, the 25% of that type of tackle getting injured is big, but in reality, we might see it, 3 times a game?
Yeah.
And so it's not like it's every single tackle. Now, it's still going to be challenging and difficult, but everyone freaking out, even though I kind of just was a minute and a half ago, I don't think it's like every single tackle this is now affected. And this is where, if they really want to do this going forward, and this is where this is really challenging, Scott, because they're separate entities, but little leagues, high schools, colleges, need to start preparing players for this, because what college does really bad right now, really bad, is they don't necessarily, they say we're going to get you to the league, but they don't teach for what players will have to do in the league. Certain coaches do. Some coaches are really good at it. But if because this isn't a rule in college, if they're saying, okay, well, we can do this, so we're not going to teach against it, well, then all of a sudden, all these kids coming up into the pros are, they have to learn on the fly in the NFL. And so it's going to be important for the colleges to be like, all right, we need to, even though we're allowed to do this, we need to teach like we're not allowed. And, chin to far hip, different form tackles, really putting an emphasis on, pursuit angles and how you actually go after guys, because the hip drop tackle typically happens when you're behind a guy, when you've gotten beat by a guy and you're catching up to him, pulling him down. So pursuit angles, formations are going to be very important. So, I mean, it's going to come down to strategy, which in that aspect is good. Defensive players and play callers are going to have to figure out how to strategize against it. But overall, I'm still not for
it. I love it. No, I'm not either. We'll see though. Maybe, hey, things can sometimes work out. I just don't see it with having to retrain everybody. And to your point about going to youth football, all this stuff, those are the type of things you have to start teaching at an early age, because that's your technique right now. It doesn't mean that an older player or a pro player right now can't learn, but I just think it's a bridge too far. By the way, in other NFL news, the Panthers, Jadeveon Clowney, 2-year, $20 million contract. So he goes home. He's from that South Carolina area, just across the border from Charlotte. So Clowney goes to, and there's a bunch of free agents still out there, Ryan, but it's trickling in like it usually does this time of the year ahead of the draft. Everybody starts focusing on the draft. They're still getting folks visiting in town. I want to get your reaction to this story, because with the NFL draft coming, I'm going to show this up on the screen with us in the corner so people can watch. Oops, here we go. Is the Caleb Williams stuff. Have you been watching this the last day or so?
I saw it. Yeah.
So, and I'm showing it here on the screen. There we go, so we can see us. So Caleb Williams is at the basketball NCAA tournament, and he appears like somebody says he's wearing lip gloss. I don't think he is. He's holding a pink phone, and he appears to have, they say pink fingernails. I don't see pink fingernails. Do you see pink fingernails? I don't. I just see maybe he's got a manicure and he's got nice fingernails. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there seems to be this weird sudden turn on Caleb Williams. Now, I know West Coast, East Coast, sometimes that stuff happens. But you being in Los Angeles, being the founder of the LA Football Network, covering USC so close as you can, what do you make of this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like he, in a way, is like leaning into it. And like, okay, I know I'm going to get torn apart no matter what I do. So I'm just going to lean into it, have some fun with it. Like, it almost feels like that, because it's like everything he does gets, as the number 1 overall pick usually does. For me, I could care less. Like, I don't think it's an issue at all. Like, can you play ball? Are you a good teammate? Can you lead? Stuff like that, which I think is what teams really care about. But yeah, it is interesting. And I just, because I watched the game, and when they showed him, like, I didn't think two things from it, and then it exploded everywhere about the pink phone, and I'm like, oh geez, everyone's really leaning into pulling at straws here. I don't know, maybe it is something. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, remember the shot that came out towards the end of the season? He's wearing some outfit. It looks like a dress. And
Yeah.
so people were talking about that. He's always painted his fingernails. We know about the expletives on his fingernails, all that kind of stuff when he was playing. But this stuff was like, it's just really weird. And it's so many people, but you know what? It goes along with the way I think our culture has been for a long time, Ryan, which is build up a guy so you can just destroy him.
Hmm.
Right. And here's a kid who hasn't even gotten the NFL yet. And the amount of times that I'm hearing Caleb Williams bust, how could he be a bust? You don't even know yet. So
Yeah.
this shows up again. I don't think he's wearing lip gloss. Come on. It's the color. You're doing off a video online. Not only that, but I don't know about you, but every once in a while I might be somewhere with my wife at the movies or something. And she goes to refill the drink and she says, here, hold my phone. And I have her phone.
Yeah.
And her phone's got a little twisty thing. I mean, that's not my phone. I'm just holding it for him. Now, I don't know. He might have a pink phone. I don't care. But it's interesting. And I don't know if it's also some jealousy. People, he's been talked about as being such a generational talent, possibly, that so many people who know they're not going to get him now are just mad about it. Because I don't think Bear fans seem to be upset about it. But it's just
Yeah.
weird to me what starts to go online and what people get fixated on ahead, a month ahead of this guy's biggest day in his life.
Yeah. I mean, it's honestly, it's sad and gross in my opinion, just because you're people are pulling at things to tear a guy down that have nothing to actually do with
Yeah.
the player, the person. I guess a little bit with the person, but nothing like character flaws. Nothing like,
Right.
report comes out that he's involved in blah blah blah. That's like a criminal act. Like that's the story.
Yeah.
This is just like pulling it. Remember when Trevor Lawrence was going to be the number one overall pick, and it started coming out that he like didn't love football, like didn't care about the game.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, are we just making things up now? And so
Yeah.
I think people just apparently I want to do that with Caleb, and I'll be happy when he is drafted, and then everyone can move on. I mean, obviously, then it'll be him in the NFL and even more
Sure.
scrutinized, but at least it won't be him, the draft prospect, scrutinized.
Yeah. I just hate those whisper campaigns. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like you want to talk about, oh, sorry. You want to talk about the guy's play on the field. You don't like this, you don't like that, whatever it may be. Fine. No problem with that. I think that's all relevant.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't, and even some of his attitude, I get it, because when you're going to pay a guy this kind of money, you want to understand what kind of person he is, what kind of demeanor does he have, and that's come into question for some I think justified reasons and others not justified. Jumping in with his mom, crying when he lost to UCLA, right? That kind of stuff. Okay, fine, whatever. He's an 18-year-old kid. I don't care what anybody says. Or 19. What is he, 19 now? Or 20? I can't remember. 20.
Or, yeah, something like that.
So I get that, but at the same time, I think some of the teams that would like to draft him that don't think they can do it too, because they're hoping that maybe that team will get enough flack that they won't draft him. So they're somehow hoping the Bears don't draft him. It's just weird, the way in which athletes today. And you tell me, I mean, like you said, you cover USC. What was sort of the story around Caleb Williams, as far as Caleb Williams, the guy, not the football X's and O's, but the guy inside that program?
Yeah. So my colleague who co-hosts our Salute to Troy USC show with me, I think he brought up a really good point, and this will allude to your question. And I'll answer it more, but
Mhm.
to him, he said the only question organizations should be asking him, because tape speaks for itself. The guy can play. Yeah, he said has still stuff to work on.
Sure.
Leadership stuff. Yeah, there's some moments where they weren't great, but he's not a bad guy. So to answer your question, teammates love him. There's never been a bad word said about him from the team, from the program, from the coaches, from anyone that knows him that I know about. That not a single bad thing has been uttered about him. So I don't think that's a concern at all. Yeah, can you use some coaching on what you do with the press? Of course. Can you have some coaching on certain leadership and body language? Of course. The only real question, and I don't have the exact answer, I have a fairly good one, but is why when Caleb Williams didn't play in the bowl game, did USC play their best game of the season? Miller Moss had never started a game for USC, threw for 6 touchdowns. The offense was humming. All this thing. Why was that? That would be the only question. Now, I cover the team. Like they fired their defensive coordinator. They had a big culture shift for those 6 weeks. They were running kind of a little bit different offense that Louisville maybe was not prepared for, because that wasn't on tape. The defense itself actually played a lot better. So I think there was a lot of factors. I don't think it was because Caleb Williams was like tearing the team down. But
Right.
that would be the only question that I'd be asking is like, okay, why when you didn't play did the team play better? And if he answers it like that, then it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, that makes all sense.
Right.
But all the other stuff, locker room leader, like it's all way overblown. And I think the Bears know that, which is why they're taking him first overall.
Yes, I have no doubt that they will. But yeah, it's interesting with kids like this. And then, of course, you had the other day Shedeur Sanders and the press conference where he was talking about, and people were saying he's so cocky because he talked about adversity. Well, your father's a rich guy, and you made $6 million. Everybody has adversity. It doesn't matter what your pocketbook looks like or how talented you are, how you grew up. Yes. Did he have it easier than some people? Absolutely. So but this is what happens too when you get to the level of, as much as I love sports, Ryan, obviously because of what we do, is that there's so much onus put on it, and it's put on such a pedestal that now younger and younger kids are expected to act like a 30-year-old adult. So you even see this with Major League Soccer. I don't know if you saw the biggest name in Major League Soccer is right now 14 years old.
Yeah.
He's in the minor league type stuff that they do for minor league soccer. I forgot what it's called, the development stuff. He's 14 and they're already dealing rights to him to the European Premier League teams so he could play. And I forget his name off the top of my head, but it's like he's 14. He's still trying to figure out what the red mark is on his face. So, you talk about Caleb Williams, talk about any of these guys or women, young women who come out too about wealth and being in the spotlight and leadership. Look, as a young guy, how many times did I fail at leadership? A lot. How many times did I fail even friends and all the time? Because that's what you learn. That's how you learn as you're growing up.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what we need to look at is what's the character of these young men and how do they bounce back from any mistakes they make? And if they're bouncing back and correcting things, then none of that's concerning. Now, obviously, if there's off the field criminal stuff, that's different. But, being mad at the press or answering questions unfairly or whatever, like, come on, like, what are we doing? What bugs me the most, Scott, is the same people that throw stones are the same people that do the same type of complaining on their own account. So it's just like, if it's not them, they'll throw stones at someone. But if it was their situation, like, they'll be the ones complaining.
Correct. So it's weird that it works out that way too. Cause I'll share with you, we were, and of course I'm not going to share any names, but we were trying to book a guest on Sportsnaut for an interview. And this person works for a print publication. I'll keep it at that. And they asked us for money. Like we called, hey, we want to talk about this thing, that thing. So I'm not going to give away their area, but wanted to talk about a specific subject that was in the news. And I was like, I went to journalism school. But then these are the same kind of people who are criticizing these kids like this and talking about NIL money and it's just such a weird time we live in. But Caleb Williams, again, he's going to be the number one pick in the draft. And the Bears, I'm sure, when you're investing that kind of money, you're doing your due diligence. You're talking to people. You're spending time with the kid. There's even rumors this week that he may, and I don't think you can per league rules, but he might even be in Chicago already. He's getting ready. He's meeting his teammates. He wants to go by the building and visit or something like that. So clearly they're invested. He's invested. He knows where he's going. He's fine with that. But I just thought it was kind of crazy, kind of silly, getting down to that stuff. But hey, what else? So we're going to do, so next week, Ryan, I think we should do this for everybody. Next week, we start to really turn the corner. It's the last week of March.
Crazy.
And I know it's nuts. Last week of March. So we're turning the corner towards the draft. So I think next week we should maybe do a little first round mock. What do you think?
Oh, that sounds great.
Does that sound good? Okay, cool.
I love it.
So we're going to do that, everybody. We'll be back here next Wednesday at 4:00 Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And we're going to talk first round of the draft. We're going to do a mock. Ryan and I will go back and forth on that stuff and get through it. Make it fun. We'll make it fun and interesting in some interesting ways. We'll have some trade, whatever. I think I already have in my mind a trade I think is going to happen. So I'm going to toss that in there. We'll have a good time. But it's going to be awesome. And I know that there's a lot of stuff going up on LA Football Network. So if you're interested in USC, UCLA, the Rams, the Chargers, lots of changes going on for all of those teams, coaches, players, roster, all kinds of GMs. So check that out. Make sure you get there. Also, check out sportsnaut.com. We have all your stuff on NFL football, including free agency and signings. We talked about the Clowney signing today. You can go read a story up there by our own Matt Johnson about that. And again, we ask you that you please subscribe to the channel here hit that notifications bell, and also hit the thumbs up. Ryan, my friend, always fun. We get to do it again next week, and we'll do that mock draft. We'll see who gets more accurate. We'll have to put something fun on it.
Yes, can't wait. Absolutely looking forward to it. Always fun, Scott. Looking forward to mock draft season, baby.
Yeah, it's that time. All right. Ryan Dyrud, by the way, follow him on x.com at Ryan Dyrud, Dyrudlafb. Right, I got that right. Yes. I sometimes screw that. I try to put the B in front of the L. I'm like, it's LA, dude. Figure it out. You can also follow me at LV Gully, Gully, and the show NautZone. And of course, go follow Sportsnaut in all of your social media channels. That way you'll get the most up-to-date news that you can get. For Ryan, I am Scott Gulbransen. We will talk to you next week, everybody. Enjoy your spring.